about time to start. So first off, my name is Pontus Wallberg. This presentation will be about Web Configurator SDK. Um, Here is the agenda for today. I'm going to do a little bit of background about what we're doing. I'm going to give an overview. We're going to talk a bit more about the specifics. I'm going to show some code, do some customizations, and I'll end with another slide and some questions. So first off, as I said, my name is Pontus. I'm a senior R&D developer in a newly formed team. It's called the Web R&D team. We're based in Linköping, and obviously, as you can see, we are expanding. Henrik. So we are trying to build very new, exciting stuff on the web, kind of extending the possibilities of CET onto the web instead. So it's always important to start with the why. So content is one of the most valuable things there are. And you as developers and partners spend a great deal amount of time and money and investing in putting content in CET. So what we want to be able to do now is that we want to open that up a little bit to be able to use that content outside of CET. So content reuse for web apps, that is kind of our purpose. So to be a bit more concrete about it, you can see my headings over here, the store, fetch, and visualize. That is kind of how I see it. So we're mainly focusing on catalogs right now. That is our store. So this is where we store our products, right? Or you define your product, however you want to see it. But catalogs is our data source. And so what we're doing in our team is that we are building an API where we can fetch those products to get access to it outside of CET Designer. So we could technically have stopped there to fulfill that why, I feel like. But since we are doing a platform, we are trying to give you tools to create things. We are also creating an SDK, which is a way for you to work with the data, to visualize the data that you have in catalogs. Now, we are trying to keep the tools and API very general. So we're going to leave it kind of up to you, developers and partners, to kind of come up with the end game here yourself. So hopefully we're going to give you enough of a foundation for you to build upon. But we didn't want to define it as you have to be in this kind of box or you have to do this kind of implementation. So I'm not a catalog expert, but we are talking about catalogs. I just want to put up a slide here. So this is kind of my point of view. I'm learning catalogs as I go along, but here are the highlights that I know from my perspective speak pretty good. So first off, it's database driven. I'm sure a lot of you know what PGC are, that you do it in code instead. So, but we have a database, which means that it's easy for us to read the data and use the data. Catalogs is also OFDA XML compatible, which is great. It's an industry standard. So from what I understand, catalogs is kind of an extension of that. So you should be able to import and export OFDA XML files. And since we're not doing programming in catalogs, so to speak, we have the UI, the catalog creator, which even lowers the barrier on how you get started. So for me, at least, this kind of point is very great because it makes it easy to create your data, fast to market, and well, it's great for us to work with. Now, the last point is CMSIM, which is technically not specifically to catalogs, but I want to put it up here because it's important going forward. So there are two formats, the CM3D and CMSIM file formats. And since we are doing a new product and CMSIM is a new file format, we decided only to support the new file format. So our web API and SDK only support CMSIM, CM3D. Now, I've talked to quite a few partners and quite a lot is still on using CM3D. They're like, complicated to change. But if you wanted to try this out, there is actually a batch converter tool in the Catalogs Creator. I learned it just a few weeks ago. But what it does is that it goes through all the models, updates them or converts them to CMSIM instead, and just updates the file references, but keeps the catalog as it is. So even if you just wanted to try out using this API, okay, you can do that, give it a spin and see how it works out for you. Right. So now over to the stuff that I'm actually building then. So first off is the API. I said before it's a web API, but I think it's important to know that it's not just web applications. We are talking HTTP methods here that you will be used when you're calling the API, of course, but any modern program, Windows, Android, iOS, will be able to use this. So don't narrow your mind here to kind of think, oh, this has to be a web app or website or something like that. And the API is something that we're going to host. So it will be a service available to you that you sign up for. So our goal is to make it globally available. So we're going to have servers in each continent. We're going to try to make it very robust. And if you have users in America, you should, of course, talk to servers in America because to reduce the latency as much as possible. Security, obviously very important. This is your content, this is your data. So every communication with the API is going to be over HTTPS. So we are using a TLS certificate. That is pretty standard in modern web technology, but I just want to point it out. The second part, access tokens. That's so we don't want your data to be read by anyone. So we're going to give you a master API key, which will you will be able to fetch access tokens for you kind of sign off to give an access token and say, hey, you are allowed to read our data. So your data will not be read by anyone who hasn't been signed off by it. So software development kit then. As I said before, we are trying to keep it general and hopefully we're providing you the tools to build things. So we spend a great deal of time to actually try to make it modular. So if you want to like use everything that we are built to build on top of that, that's great. But you should be able to kind of cherry pick the best parts if you want to. I know that there will be people who want to do very little. That's fine. And I know that there are partners that want to do a lot. And they should be able to just choose the packages they want to go forward. And yeah, so the next step is kind of technical here, but the modern web languages here, I just want to point it out that we are building it in TypeScript, so we get types, which is fantastic. I hope everyone loves types. I love types. Obviously, the code will become less error prone. You will be able to see what kind of properties there are on objects, etc. We're also using Rust for some parts, which we are compiling to WebAssembly. We do that to increase the performance where we think it's beneficial. And the last thing that we're doing is that we're using one of the most common web frameworks out there for UI, and that's React. But I just want to point it out again that if you using like Angular or Ember or Vue, sure, you could look in our implementation, or you could just build your own and just scrap our React part and just use the rest. That's fine. So the reason I'm telling you all of this is because our SDK from will only support evergreen browsers, so that's important to know going forward. Basically, it means no Internet Explorer. And kind of makes sense since we are using WebGL 3D on the web. You can't really do Internet Explorer very well with that. And also using WASM or WebAssembly doesn't work. So if that is a criteria, you have to come up with a solution for yourself. All right. So how does it all hang together or go together? So um, even if you're a developer, things might get a little bit hairy here, but um, so the orange circles are configure parts, and the blue circles are external parts, partners or developers, or however you want to see it. Catalogs is obviously catalog, that is our data point. So let's start down here with the client. Um, and by client, I mean, for example, like a web app or website or something like that. The code that reaches the end user. That's what I'm talking about. This is where you would integrate our SDK if you're going to use that. So what's going to happen is the client is going to talk to your server. This is where you're going to keep the API key. And I just want to stop there and say the API key must be there. Maybe that's obvious, but you cannot put the API key in client. The client code that's readable by everyone. So you're kind of exposing your API key to everyone if you would do that. So API key goes on the server. So the client asks the server, I want to get an access token. The server then talks to our API saying, here is the master API key, give me an access token. Our server say, okay, here you go, which it then sends back to the client. Now the client are allowed to actually access the catalog data. So that is how it all go together. Then the client can then start fetching like a product, viewing that on a website. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. So documentation. Always a bit tricky, I think. Documentation is great, but sometimes it can get out of sync. Uh, so hopefully we find the right balance on the documentation we're providing. Um, I want to talk about something called Swagger first. I don't know how many here know Swagger, but it's actually pretty cool. So in this image here, we have a Swagger file. It's basically a YAML file, which you write definitions. So in this file, we are defining how our API will look like. We're defining which URL you will be able to call. We are defining which types of URL parameters and which types of responses you're going to get. So from that single YAML file, we can then generate the code or the documentation here. So that is pretty neat, but still it could get out of sync, right? So what we have decided to do is from that single YAML file, we're actually generating all of our types for the API, both the front-end code and the back-end code. We are also generating code to actually handle requests and responses, which means if we would like to add a new API call or change something, we would have to go into this YAML file, change it, generate everything, and it would update the documentation, the server, the client types. Uh, so that part should always be in sync, otherwise our stuff wouldn't work. We also, of course, have regular documentation, but we're trying to keep that to the minimum. Kind of just this is how you get started, this is how things go together. So what we have decided to do instead is provide you with both an example app and an example server to kind of see how you could implement this if you wanted to. And you get all this code to kind of poke around with and look at and use as your reference point if you want to. Now, you're developers, so perhaps you don't care about this, but I think it's important just to know at the back of your head how it works. So you buy access to the API, which you pay for annually. Um, and then depending on how much you use the API, you pay for that usage. So it's a per request that we're going to log. Then you will be able to see what types of requests you have been using. And so it's a ridiculously small amount per request, of course. We're doing it volume based instead. But I just want to point out that if you were to use the API for like 10 apps or something, you would still only pay for one kind of service. You don't have to pay 10 services to use these on 10 apps or 100 apps. It's the same kind of deal. We also have additional services that you can opt into if you want to, which will follow the same kind of business model that will have different fees, right? So those services could be like exporting a product in a format like SDK. Yes, time for some code. Change my display here. Yes. Right. So we have a GitLab for our code. Um, everyone has that today. Uh, so see this now. Somewhat. Yeah. So I'm going to be a bit like a TV chef here. We're not going to go through all the steps. I just want to talk about them so you're aware. So if you were to use this today, you would have to do a lot of like compiling and installing stuff. Obviously, we are going to publish our packages open source. So you'll be able to fetch them on either npm or some kind of open registry. We haven't really decided yet which one it's going to be. But if you were to drag down this um, or download this code, the first thing you have to do is you have to install some kind of prerequisites here, right? So the first one being Node.js, so you can run JavaScript outside of the browser. You also need to install Yarn, which is a package manager for JavaScript packages. We also use something called Learn Now, since we are doing it modular. We are trying to do a lot of packages at the same time, and that's just a neat way to handle those packages. Then you need to install your dependencies, and since this is modern web development, there are a lot of dependencies. Like using React, that probably has by itself 2,000 under dependencies or sub dependencies. Never looked in your node module. I suggest that you do. Then you kind of build them. This part here. This is to build the packages if you want to do this locally. But as I said, once it goes live, there will be pre-compiled packages. Oh, here's the first one. We're actually gonna do this here. Um, so here's your secret token that you would put in here. Um, that's fine. That's for development purposes. Basically, what this program command is going to do is it's going to start both the documentation, so you would have it locally. It's going to start the example app, and it's going to start the example server. And basically, you're just going to put this in the terminal, kind of like this. Then it's just going to run through everything. Okay. So this is kind of what you would get. These are the documentation I talked about before. So I'm not going to go into this too much, but this is the Swagger documentation that is how it's generated from that YAML file. But it's pretty neat. It makes it much easier to just look at. So here you can kind of see all the different kind of calls you can make from the client side. So for instance, product call, a get call that you do. You could see the parameters. You could expand this, look even further and see, okay, this is the kind of response that we get back. Then if you wanted to have that look even nicer, all of the models it's called, but it's different types of responses down here. So here's the product response. So you're getting 3 keys at the top. Then you can expand here, go even further. So this is all of the data you get when you make a product call. Mhm. Yes. Both on the client side and the back end. Yeah. So once you start the app, this is what you're going to get to. It's going to list your product catalogs that you have made available in the API. This is something you will be able to do on my configurator. So basically, once you start the example app, it's just going to show you what catalogs you have made available. I only have one for this demo purposes. And if I click on that, I'm going to get the list of products. This is our table of contents. I only have one product, but you can have multiple products here. Just list here in GridNet. And I just want to show you the code for this. Oops. Viewable. So basically, what you have here is our implementation of table of contents. You could modify this any way you want. I just want to show you the React code for doing something as easy as showing the table of contents. So you would do a API call. So here we get the table of contents tree structure. And then we're just going to save that as a variable. Down here, we have the actual UI. It's only about 10 rows. You'll just iterate to it. And we have standard components to show you a grid map. So it's fairly simple to just get started with showing a table of contents. Now, what I think most people are interested about is the actual product view. So this is showing one catalog product at a time. So we are giving you, this is what we are providing you out of the box. It's very plain, very simple. If you want to stay there, that's fine. But I'm going to show you how you could actually dig into the code and customize it if you want to. You probably will. But yeah, we are providing you with a 3D viewer here. So you can spin this object around, closer. And everything here is driven from catalog. So here are my catalog options. So I have different kind of backs. I have different types of fabrics. It also says up here which types of price it is, style number, etc. And everything, we don't do anything local. Everything is just show it. We are using the super level. Yes. Since we are only showing one product, we figured that probably will be the most use case. We are talking about having the possibility of choosing different level of details later on, but we want to see that is actually now. I'm going to do some customization just to show you guys what you can actually do here. So first off, I've just like added a simple font to change things. I've added a new CSS file. I'm going to do some styling. Um, and I'm going to move things around a little bit. So first off, we have a product view, which is similar to the table of contents view. So if we see here, here's the React code for that. So here's our product view. We do a bunch of, or we have defined a bunch of like API calls that we want to do in this view. So I'm not going to go through them, but it's, you could fetch a product, for instance. You could validate a product, which you do when you change an option. You want to see that it's a valid option or not. But we're going to go down here to the actual UI code, and it's fairly, what we're providing out of the box is also fairly simple. So it's not that much code if you wanted to use it. It's about 20 rows or something to get to this view. So that is the kind of standard component we're giving. Now, let's say we want to do some simple customization here. Let's just flip it around to begin with. I'm going to start small here and then just go deeper into the code. So by just flipping the code here, we're just flipping the sides, right? I want to take this somewhere where I feel more comfortable and having it on my website. Now, let's make it a bit nicer as well. So this is just styles. This is plain CSS. So I'm just changing the font, changing the background, a bit of padding. I'm going to auto reload here. Yes. And I want to make, see, I made comments here. I want to make full height picker or content tree, if you want to call it that. This part on the left-hand side, or right-hand side, sorry. So, just by doing a few styles here, we're actually doing quite a lot of things. Um, so obviously the 3D looks a bit out of proportion here. I want to make that much bigger as well. Starting to be like a full page kind of app experience now instead. Then I'm gonna put in my brand style, I call it. I'm having a very nice blue kind of purple brand style, nice drop shadow. Uh, so for we're talking about 80 lines of custom CSS just to get this. So it's quite easy to just make it work on your site. Yeah. So the last thing I'm gonna do right now is just I made this part a bit bolder with the font. Uh, I changed the radio buttons a bit to make it look more like I want it to look like. But I'm thinking this is starting to look pretty good. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna go back to my product view now, and I'm just gonna show you another like top level kind of thing you will be able to do. So we're gonna have what's called properties. Uh, to basically be able to send in different types of properties. You want to enable stuff or disable stuff. Um, and one thing I just want to show you is perhaps you don't want your customers to be able to zoom, for instance. So you could just pass that as a prop. Then it's going to reload, and now you can see I can't actually I can still spin it around, but just disable that feature. Okay, so far we have only kept our stuff at high level. We have added new CSS, we have added new properties. But what if we like want to change stuff really long down into the code? Let's say, for instance, I don't think this is standard catalogs. This is how you sort in catalogs. But let's say that I want to show a dollar sign, something simple, but this would be outside of the standard kind of components we are providing. So the good thing about this is since I have all the code, I can look at all of our implementations. I could actually just go into the configurator here, which is the tree, or the left-hand side there, and I can look at how we have done things. So what I've done is that I actually copied this and customized it to use my own custom configurator. So it's using my base, but I'm going to modify it. Now, load, see that that works. Yeah. So even though I'm not using my own or configure component anymore, everything still just however you want. Now, to get to the actual um, USD thing, we would actually have to do the same thing for the product information. So I have a custom one of that as well. And this is like a super simple example, but all I'm doing here is I created a object, which if we get the USD key, we're going to show a dollar sign. But just for purpose to show you that you can do stuff very far down in our code. So just say that I'm going to reload. Yeah, you can see that it now shows a dollar sign. So the last thing I want to show you in customization here is what happens. So you have this nice view, but what if you want to like go further? You want to perhaps add this to a cart. How do I go about that? Since we now have customized the option tree here, we could just put in a button, which I've done here. Now, this is kind of where you would hook into your own next step for the thing. Since you have all the product data, have access to your kind of own information on your website. So what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to add a button. Um, and once we click it, I'm only going to do an alert, but I just want to show you that since I have the product data here, I can actually get to the design number, I can get to the list price, I can get to the currency, I can get to all of the data we have fetched. And if I want to move that now into like another system called Shopify or whatever kind of e-commerce system you're using, you'll be able to. Well, we are using Canvas, so you could get like a Canvas but if you're talking like a nice rendering, that is one of the services that we're building. But you could absolutely do a Canvas. That's just you could do that in the browser, just right click. So that's just a browser API call. I also added some styles so it doesn't look that bad. So save. Yes, now we have it over here. Um, so let's say that I was pretty happy with this. Maybe I wanted to have black fabric instead. Now I wanted to buy this. This will cost me $1,100. And if I click here, I could just take this data now and move it into another system, which you would host yourself, of course. But then it's gonna work. That's all I did. But it kind of shows you how easy it is to integrate this into your own system that you have today. Right. So I'm just gonna switch this back. Yes. So we did a couple of code examples, right? We saw how we could get started with the code, and you could see how quite easily you could customize it and integrate it. We still kept it at a pretty basic level. This is a new product, so I wasn't planning on doing too much advanced stuff since it is new. If it takes off, maybe we have an advanced one next year. Um, but our goal has always been that we wanted to release a stable of this for this year. So previously we had said Q4, and finally we had to narrow it down. So we'll have a stable version of the SDK and API this November. And with any new product surrounding things, probably will be a bit manual in the beginning, how it works on stuff like that. But if you want to sign up for this, you're welcome to talk to me or manager for your manufacturer, something like that. They will set this up for you. All right. Then I have room for questions. If there are questions. Yes. Mhm. Once you make the catalog available in the API, we're going to pull new data all the time. So that it should automatically update. Any more? Yes. Oh, I, ballpark, sure. Um, but you can't hold me to the number. Yeah. A ballpark for the annual service is going to be about $5,000 to get access to the API. You get by the API, get yes, you get access to the API. And then for a regular API call, uh, probably be about do I don't want to say it wrong here, but you could do let's say 300 requests for $1. So pretty low. And the additional services, I don't know the pricing at the top of my head now, but if you want to get like export for a service as well, that would also be an annual fee. Uh, Not as high, but like $2,000 or something each year. But the API price or API call for that would be much higher. That is due to we would have to put a lot of more pressure on the servers. They would hold them up longer, so the pricing would be so. I'm not sure, but maybe you could do like 50 export calls for $1 instead, something like that. Yep. Yes. When you say full breadth, you mean table of contents or no? Okay. Um, I'm not sure. Fetch. We can fetch a list of products, and we can also fetch all of the information regarding one product. Where would where would the arbitrary data? Would it be connected? Okay, outside the product. Yeah, not right now. Oh, okay. Yeah. Would that be something you'd like to fetch? Why? Mhm. Okay. Hmm. Okay. Do you want to be able to fetch all the data basically that you can from, what did you say, vendor? Or okay, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I'm welcome. We want to expand the API as much as possible, but we're focused on products right now. So yes. How many calls you can make, or no? Probably gonna set up that you so you will be able to see how many calls you're making, and we're probably gonna use some kind of functionality because that is the big question here. Should we shut down the API if this is like a business critical thing? If you integrate this into your web shop, do you want the API to stop working for you if you hit that limit, or would you like to just be notified that you have hit the limit? Yeah. Okay, you mean you're gonna lock it down yourself, or okay. Yeah, no, sure. All right. Yeah, yeah, we already have it as a service. Um, just us in our team that's testing right now. But yes, so you will be able to configure a product, hit render, and it's gonna return a JPEG of that configured product. Yeah. No, it's just pull. We don't write to it at all. We just read for it. Uh, no, we haven't really discussed that. To be honest, that would be a completely different product. Yeah, no, we just keep sticking to reading for now. Yeah, that is a good idea. stretch. No, it's considered, but we're not working on it right now. The first version will not support stretch or just basically. Yeah. 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 In the long run, we want to do stretch, yeah, but not in. Right. More questions? Okay. Thank you very much.